Coming up tonight, police officers turn out in force to salute the procession for fallen Detective Ben Campbell. We'll have that heartwarming story coming up.
We'll meet a doctor from South Portland who's doing something pretty unusual these days, making house calls.
And we're going to meet some kids who've come up with an app to help people with dementia. This is News Center Now. A lot of people are coming out to remember the life of a public servant taken too soon. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lee Nelson.
And I'm Cindy Williams. Maine State Police are standing vigil this evening for Detective Ben Campbell. Today, his fellow troopers escorted his body from the medical examiner's office in Augusta to the funeral home in Millinocket. This is a long-standing tradition among first responders who often line the streets to pay their respects. And indeed, Campbell's body was saluted by troopers from dozens of departments.
That procession passed the site of the freak accident in Hamden that took the detective's life. He was struck by a tire that had come flying off a passing logging truck as Campbell was standing outside his vehicle trying to help a stranded driver on I-95.
And the end of today's journey will bring the procession of flashing lights to the Lamson Funeral Home in Millinocket. This is a live shot, that procession just pulling in right now. Millinocket, of course, where Trooper Campbell lived with his wife and 6-month-old baby boy. Funeral arrangements have not yet been announced, but we will keep you updated on those plans just as soon as they are made public.
And we're going to be following this story throughout the evening. Of course, we're following other things as well, including the weather. Mr. Carson is here with a quick check of what's going on out there. Hey, Keith.
Hey, guys. The story today was the wind, right? And it did gust over 55 miles an hour in spots. It's now settled down a bit, but still pretty high in Millinocket at 45 miles an hour and 37 miles an hour in Rockland. So noticeably windy here, but not doing any damage. Current temperatures in the low 40s over southern Maine, 30s and below freezing in some spots. That's all a little bit of snowpack from yesterday's storm. So not an overly mild day for the beginning of April, and it won't be a very mild evening either. Current wind chills feel like 19 in Millinocket, 34 in Portland, and 21 in Berlin. It'll be chilly tonight because it's going to be clear. The winds will start to settle, and it's relatively cold to begin with. So quite a few of us will actually end up in the teens by early tomorrow morning before we start going back in the right direction. The sun angle, luckily, pretty hard to fight this time of the year. So hour-by-hour forecast showing you the temperatures do drop down in the teens, but then we get back into the mid and upper 30s quickly into the low 40s. Clouds increase from southwest to northeast, and then a little system comes through tomorrow night. We've talked about this for a few days. It's not a big deal, but it will have some wet snow in here through the evening on Friday and through early Saturday, guys, and will add up to just enough for a snowfall map. I'll show you that in a few minutes.
Okay, Keith.
Again.
Thank you very much. Here we go again indeed.
In other news, nearly 20 cents out of every dollar spent in the U.S. goes to health care. That is a much higher percentage than any other comparable country. And yet most people would agree that our health care system has enormous problems.
Now, if fixing the system were easy, well, they would have done it already, right? But there are various health care models being tried all the time, and one of them is happening on a very small scale in South Portland. And Rob Caldwell has that story.
Finding a doctor who makes house calls is easy.
After his brief luncheon recess, Dr. Wade answers a call from the Bennett farm, a few miles out of town.
All you have to do is go back to the 1940s when just about all general practitioners made house calls. But over time, the tradition faded away. Faded away, but did not disappear.
Hi, Stacy. How are you?
Dr. Orrin Gersten still makes house calls because he runs his own medical practice in an unconventional way.
I want to hear about the meds, because we made some medication changes at your last visit.
Dr. Gersten does not accept insurance payments. Instead, his patients pay a monthly fee ranging from $25 a month for patients under 19 to $99 for patients over 64. The fee covers comprehensive primary care.
So your blood pressure is 138/82, which is about where it's been, kind of when we've taken it to office.
The system Gersten has adopted is called direct primary care. The idea is that it gives doctors autonomy, allowing them to spend more time on medicine, and because they don't have to deal with health insurance companies, less time on paperwork and bureaucracy. Stacey Ayat is a fan.
I love it. I love his accessibility.
What is the appeal for a doctor?
I have flexibility in my practice to extend a visit to half an hour or an hour if I think that the patient needs that kind of attention. In a traditional fee-for-service or insurance-based model, you just don't have that much flexibility because you need to see the patients, sometimes 20 patients in a day.
Do you have any employees?
0 employees. Just me.
Is that efficient for you to be the one who schedules appointments, sends out the bills, makes sure that the patients are paying you, to do all that kind of stuff? Is that efficient?
If I'm screening these phone calls from patients, I'm in a very good position to understand, does this patient need to be seen? Can this be taken care of over the phone? It's just fewer links between patient and provider, and my patients really like that. Good. This is looking good.
The monthly fee that patients pay doesn't cover everything. Prescription drugs, lab tests, x-rays, things like that all cost extra, as does more advanced medical treatment. But often the savings Dr. Gersten provides on, say, lab tests are dramatic.
The last time I had, because I usually do have quarterly lab tests because of the diabetes, and the last time I had a full workup, it was $100. And I think it was about $12 when I had them done with Dr. Gersten.
It really just grabs my attention when you say that you charge $3 or $4 for some sort of laboratory test that elsewhere would cost me $50.
Right.
Something somewhere clearly is way out of whack.
The costs are really out of control. You know, this is something that's costing businesses and individuals and families. A big part of their income is to access care, and it's not always high quality care. And as a direct primary care doctor, I have invested interest in saving my patients money, and because I own my own business and I control the costs, I'm able to help people with that.
We keep hearing.
That's Rob Caldwell with that story. There were very few doctors doing direct primary care. Dr. Gersten says about 1,000 around the U.S. It's not a big number. It's not just patients who are frustrated by the health insurance bureaucracy. Doctors are too. We got more on this story on our website and mobile app, so check that out. The high cost of health care continues to impact our personal finances.
A new survey by West Health and Gallup finds that Americans collectively borrowed $88 billion last year to pay for their health care. That is 1 in 8 Americans who had to borrow money to cover their health care expenses. The report also finds that 1 in 4 adults say they skipped treatment due to cost. However, despite the financial strain, 64% of Americans say they are completely or mostly satisfied with their experience with our healthcare system. Well, coming up, a potential breakthrough in that missing child case that is 8 years old at this point.
And we're going to learn about an app that is made to help people with dementia. And get this, middle school kids are the ones who designed it.
Taking a look at some headlines now, while President Trump has acknowledged Mexico's increased effort to stop illegal migration into the U.S., he is apparently not completely satisfied. Mr. Trump today threatened to slap tariffs on cars coming into the U.S. from Mexico unless Mexico continues to improve its efforts to stop the flow of migrants. Last week, the president had threatened to close the entire border with Mexico unless that country immediately halted all illegal immigration.
Earlier today, we thought the mystery of a missing boy might about to be solved, but apparently that's not the case now. Police in Illinois say DNA has confirmed that a teenager found wandering around Kentucky is not Timothy Pitson. They had suspected he was. The 14-year-old told police he escaped from a couple of kidnappers from the Cincinnati area. 8 years ago, Tim's mom killed herself and left a note saying her son was fine, but that no one would ever find him. And again, no positive ID today. The DNA says it was not.
More tough news for Boeing as investigators release preliminary findings in the investigation of the Ethiopian airline that crashed. The report says the pilot followed all Boeing's procedures, recommended procedures, when the plane started to nosedive, but still the pilots could not save the plane. Boeing hasn't commented yet, but the company had repeatedly asserted that the pilots could regain control if they followed certain steps, including turning the anti-stall system off. But the pilot of Ethiopian jet did that, and still the plane crashed.
Hey, we here at News Center Maine are very excited to announce a new partnership with New England Sports Network, home of the Boston Red Sox and the Boston Bruins. Partnership begins right now, and it'll include regularly scheduled live pregame reports from Essen right to News Center. And Jess Gagne is going to appear regularly on their Red Sox pregame show. She's going to join Mainer Tommy Caron, who, as you probably know, used to be on the air here in town. Todd Guttner, Keith Carson, they're going to be doing custom weather forecasts to fans across northern New England during NESN pre- and post-game shows for the Red Sox and the Bruins, too. So how cool is that?
It's so exciting.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, coming up later in the show, a real-life version of Night in the Museum in one of the most famous places in the world.
And you don't want to miss Keith's forecast. Why? As you can imagine, people with dementia often get frustrated, but it can be really frustrating sometimes for the people caring for them as well. It's really hard to know what to do to help them.
So Josh Short shows us tonight 3 junior high school students in Kentucky found a way to do that. Check it out.
The app is called Memory Matters. It's a game where pictures are matched to words, but the app was designed with more in mind than just fun. Jackson Smith, Trey Duff, and Carter Smith have created the app for use in nursing homes to help those with dementia and Alzheimer's. The boys tell the story of what inspired them to take this on.
We went to the nursing home and met a lady named Miss Clark, and we got her permission from her family to use her photo and share her story. And Miss Clark, we threw her a birthday party, but she didn't remember it the next time we visited, so we really wanted to help people like her with dementia and Alzheimer's.
This memory game app is different than others because you're able to add your own pictures and your own text, and it's easy for elderly adults to understand and use, plus you can save multiple games.
Not only did the students create the app, they also raised money for the nursing home to buy their own iPads so they can enjoy the game anytime.
We raised $400 to get the elderly people an iPad.
Village Manor Life Enrichment Coordinator Ann Bunch explains how she feels that these brilliant young minds took on this task.
In one word, inspiring, because they have taken the time to think about somebody else besides themselves and find a way to make their lives better.
And with this app, the boys have already touched the hearts of the residents.
Oh yeah, it makes me proud of young fellows like that. Mm-hmm. They do it well, and they've got their act together.
That's nice.
There were rather some really great pictures that came in from yesterday's snow, but this one you're about to see just might take the cake. Aaron Rooker from Warren sent this to us. See if you can find the heart-shaped snowflake. I don't know. It's right near the center.
Right, it
needs to be a lot bigger. But right near the center of this picture,
I see
a little bit to the right. Keith's getting up really close so you can see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There it is.
They say everyone is unique, right?
Nice.
Oh, we have
there we go. That's a good shot of Keith.
That will not be on my.
No.
On your reel.
It's not a good angle for me.
But a heart-shaped snowflake. That was kind of cute.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I've had a consultant say that I should just look forward the whole time because this thing doesn't work for me. But you know, I figure as long as you do the weather okay, you're all set.
I don't know.
Can you imagine being that, like, just being a consultant? You're basically like Simon from
Simon Cowell.
Yeah.
No, stop right now. Just stop.
Just terrible. You're done.
They're nicer than he is, though.
Some of them are. Yeah.
That's true. So.
As you can tell, I really listened. Anyways. All right. Wind gusts in the 30 to 40 mile per hour range still, and we had wind gusts over 50 miles an hour late last night, early this morning. So really, really gusty stuff. They'll start to settle tonight, but it'll be a pretty slow process. Won't be really till tomorrow morning the winds will settle down. All right, clear through the rest of tonight. You can see this little storm system. This is going to come towards us for Friday night into early Saturday. Good news is the bulk of the precipitation down towards Memphis, Tennessee will miss us, but still we'll see a little light snow overnight on Friday because of the timing of the whole thing. So overnight tonight, it's chilly. Temperatures drop down into the teens in a lot of spots and 20s even along the immediate coastline. Tomorrow by midday, we should recover at least to the mid to upper 30s. We'll get into the 40s by early afternoon, but then the clouds start rolling in before sunset. And here comes some snow. And I think because of the timing, it will be cold enough in a lot of spots to start as a wet snow. And so that includes likely the coastline right at the onset here, 11 or midnight, and then eventually changing over to rain by Saturday morning. So Saturday morning starts off with rain and snow showers and a lot of clouds. Good news is that's the worst part of the entire weekend, because by the middle of the day we start clearing out on Saturday. Saturday afternoon could make a really dramatic recovery. Could be in the upper 50s in a lot of spots by Saturday 2, 3 o'clock. And then overnight on Saturday is relatively quiet, and Sunday looks good. It will be in the 50s for most of us. We'll call it partly cloudy, but I wouldn't be surprised if we actually just end up mostly sunny in most of the state. So here's what, by popular demand, you demanded more snowfall maps in April, and I delivered. This is for Friday night into Saturday. Keep in mind, of course, that it's very similar to the snow we had yesterday, in that even in places where we get snow that falls, it's going to be pretty easy to burn that stuff away in the afternoon, so you probably don't have to do too much. I got to tell you, you know, the pattern is questionable at best. We've got another system that'll be a mix on Monday into Monday night, where it'll be wet snow over to rain. And then perhaps another one threatening us for next weekend that would be a similar mixture of snow and rain. And so we just can't cleanly get out of this pattern that we're in. I guess it's called April in Maine. But keep in mind now we're almost getting to the point where the sun angle is similar to late August, early September. And so the battle becomes really hard, not only to get snow to accumulate, but to keep it. And so you know, we talked about Bar Harbor yesterday. Yeah. Couple inches, 3 inches of snow, gone.
Gone like
so that. It's just an annoyance for a lot of people at this point.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, good. You made me feel better.
Oh, yeah, I brought it back around.
Thanks a lot. Check this out, a chance to spend a night at one of the most famous museums in the world. The Louvre in Paris is partnering with Airbnb to let a lucky person and a guest spend the night at the museum. It's part of a celebration for the 30th birthday of the Louvre's famous glass pyramid. The sleepover would be inside the pyramid, and I'm sure they're not going to give them a total run of the museum, but fun nonetheless.
All right, interesting. Hey, it's not uncommon to see a dog or two on a train, but it was kind of strange this week when a dog hopped on a train in Ireland and the owner was nowhere. So he hopped on at the Kildare station and sniffed around for some friends, and he found quite a few, as you can imagine. Somebody nicknamed him Hamish. But when the train staff realized he was traveling solo, they took him off at the Houston stop.
He's a lovely little temperament. As you can see, he's very relaxed, very chilled out little dog. Perfect little guy. All the guys in the office looked after him brilliantly, brought him in. A lot of lads lost sandwiches. We have him under the care now of My Lovely Horse Rescue. So if the owner is out there, hopefully, fingers crossed, you can find us on Twitter or on Facebook, on Instagram.
And a happy ending to this story just came in as the dog was reunited with his owners. His real name, by the way, is not Hamish, it's Tyson. And he is very chill, no matter who's holding him. That's awesome.
He is a cool dog.
All right, $10 million, still a lot of scratch, even if we're used to seeing these billion-dollar lottery prizes lately.
And a mechanic in North Carolina has a great idea for the $10 million he just won in a scratch-off game in his home state. Theodore Duncan was headed to the dump when he stopped on a whim to buy a scratch ticket.
Now he is going to buy a house, but he's really excited about spoiling his kids and grandkids, and he's going to give $100,000 to the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital as well.
That is awesome. Nice little happenstance there. We got a lot more news for you coming up on News Center at 5:30. We are going to have more on the procession for Maine State Trooper Detective Ben Campbell. And we're going to also tell you more about how people are remembering him. Plus, a report from Maine's Attorney General shows that the state had 282 drug-related deaths in the first 9 months of 2018. The state wants to borrow a tool now from Rhode Island to try to save lives.
Also, should Portland adopt a leash law for Baxter Woods? It's been a place where dogs have run free for years, but complaints are making the city take a look at clamping down on the pooch party that's been going on there. Cindy and I are going to have all that and more coming up at 5:30.
A quick break, and Keith is back with Brain Drops. Stay with us.
All right, today's Brain Drops was a viewer question, and the question was, should we be concerned with 5G when it rolls out, health-wise? Before we get to that, let's start with what 5G is going to do to our networks. I thought 4G was relatively fast myself, but this is the comparison. So if you were to download a 2-hour-long 3D movie, it would take 6 minutes on 4G. How can we live with ourselves? 6 minutes. On 5G, it would take about 3.6 seconds to do the same, and they use a comparison of kind of what it would take in that amount of time. So the speed of this network would be much higher, and also a lot of people would be able to just stream things without any kind of Wi-Fi. Okay, let's get to the health and safety part of it. Cell phones in general have been in this weird spot where the research is in general saying there's no big causation here between cell phones and cancer. But this was actually a letter that was written by a bunch of scientists who study electromagnetic fields, peer-reviewed papers on it, and they're just asking that we slow down the speed of getting these 5G networks out there because they're concerned the higher frequency could actually cause some problems. All that to say, the easiest causation we can look at, and the one that a lot of experts go and fall back on, is the fact that the explosion of cell phones in our life has not led to an explosion in, say, brain tumors, where you'd expect them near your head. So there hasn't been a real-life payoff for this possible risk. Let me just show you another thing that's interesting about these 5G networks. They need a whole lot more, basically, repeaters. So at every couple of streets in a city, you'd have to have one of these in order to amplify that signal and direct it towards your phone. So that's another area that they don't have a lot of research on, because essentially these 5G networks operate a lot more like Wi-Fi than they do like a radio wave that you'd be used to. So the short answer is the research is telling us right now a 5G network would be safe, but there isn't a ton of data on it, and there won't probably be any until we get out there and actually launch it. Chances are that the need for speed will be overbearing the health concerns. All right, that's it for Brain Drops in our show. The news continues at 5:30.